My brothers and sisters, welcome to AfriFacts, a channel where we uncover the truths of Africa's history, culture, and resilience. Today, we are diving into one of the darkest chapters in human history, the transatlantic slave trade. This isn't just a history lesson. It's a cry from the depths of our souls, a call to remember the pain of our ancestors. The European slave trade ripped millions of Africans from their homeland, shackled them, and threw them into the depths of despair. It was a crime against humanity on a scale so massive that its repercussions are still felt today. Yet, they want us to move on, to forget, to erase it from our minds as if it never happened. Why? Because the truth is uncomfortable for them, but for us, it's our reality. Stick with me as we explore why the Europeans did this to our forefathers and why they want us to bury this painful history. By the end of this video, you'll understand why we must never forget, and why we must fight to keep our history alive. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video, because the truth needs to be told. First, let's understand the roots of this evil. The transatlantic slave trade began in the 15th century when European nations like Portugal, Spain, Britain, and France realized the economic potential of Africa's human resources. They came to Africa not as friends but as predators. They used deceit, guns, and force to capture our fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, and pack them like animals onto ships bound for the Americas. Many didn't even survive the journey, known as the Middle Passage. Do you know how brutal it was? People were crammed into ships, lying in their own waste, dying from diseases, hunger, and sheer heartbreak. Some even chose to jump into the ocean, preferring death over the torment that awaited them. Europeans justified this atrocity with lies. They claimed we were savages, inferior, and needed to be civilized. But let me ask you this: what kind of civilization kidnaps, enslaves, and dehumanizes others? The irony is painful. The economic exploitation of Africa. The slave trade wasn't just about slavery. It was about economic exploitation on an unimaginable scale. Africans were forced to work on plantations in America producing sugar, cotton, tobacco, and other goods that fueled Europe's industrial revolution. At the time our workforce was supposed to work and develop the continent, they were taking to Europe to work and develop Europe. While our lands were only occupied by the weak, old, poor, and helpless people. While our ancestors suffered in chains, Europe grew rich. The wealth of nations like Britain and France was built on the backs of enslaved Africans. Ports like Liverpool and Bristol thrived because of the slave trade. Do you know what hurts the most? That wealth is still visible in their grand cities, while many African nations struggle with poverty, a direct consequence of their plunder. The exploitation didn't end with slavery. After abolishing it, they came back to colonize us, to take our land, our minerals, and our resources. So, when they tell us to forget the past, ask yourself, how can we forget when we are still living with the consequences? Now, let's address the big question: why do Europeans want us to act as if the slave trade never happened? First, it's guilt. They know what they did was wrong, and admitting it fully means taking responsibility. But taking responsibility would mean reparations. It would mean acknowledging that the wealth of Europe is soaked in African blood. And they don't want to do that. Second, it's control. If Africans remember the truth about the slave trade, we will unite. We will rise. We will demand justice. They fear the power of a united Africa, a continent that remembers its history and uses it as fuel for progress. Finally, it's about narrative. They want to control the story. In their textbooks, they downplay slavery. They make it seem like it was just a small event, a footnote in history. But for us, it wasn't a footnote. It was a tragedy that shaped the destiny of millions of African people. The slave trade didn't just end with the abolition of slavery. Its legacy lives on in the systemic racism, poverty, and underdevelopment that plague our people today. Why are so many African nations struggling? Because they stripped us of our people, our resources, and our dignity. Why do African descendants in the diaspora still face discrimination? Because the world was built on the idea that Africans are inferior, a lie that began during the slave trade. We must connect these dots. The past is not just the past. It's the foundation of the present. And until we confront it, we cannot build a better future. My brothers and sisters, we must never forget. Our ancestors endured unimaginable suffering, but their strength and resilience live on in us. It's our duty to honor their memory by speaking the truth, by educating ourselves and the world, and by fighting for justice. To the Europeans who say, "Forget about it," we say, "No. We will not forget. We will tell our stories. We will teach our children. We will reclaim our narrative." If you believe in this mission, if you feel the pain of our ancestors and the hope for a brighter African future, subscribe to AfriFacts. Like this video. Share it widely. Let the world hear our voices. Together, we can rewrite the narrative and remind the world that Africa is not a victim but a survivor. A force to be reckoned with. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay strong, stay proud, and stay united. Remember our past. Reclaim our future.